It's official, we have a major hurricane heading straight for the US. Several days ago, we started talking about this seemingly innocent area of thunderstorms north of South America. Now, due to excessive heat in the ocean that's getting pulled up into the atmosphere, it's created an area of low pressure and intensified to a tropical storm named Ian. And to be honest, Ian is starting to look pretty bad because it's going to get much stronger and make a beeline straight for the US coast. On its journey to the US, it's going to grow into a hurricane right before hitting Cuba, and then it's going to rapidly intensify into a Category 3 or maybe even stronger major hurricane as it approaches Florida. The governor of Florida has already issued a state of emergency for 24 counties in preparation, and the locals are already starting to prepare. But there are still several questions about this storm that have yet to be answered. In this video, I'm going to lay out all the information we have right now so you can be prepared for anything. Here's a current look at Tropical Storm Ian and all the information we have from the National Hurricane Center. Look at that swirly boy. It's starting to look pretty menacing down here in the Caribbean Sea. Currently boasting wind speeds around 45 miles an hour and a central low pressure of 1,004 millibars. This thing has gotten a lot stronger since just last night. Do you see this big red cone? This is what I call the cone of uncertainty. We call it that because the center of this storm is going to go anywhere inside of that bad boy, and we're not certain as to exactly where. Notice how the cone gets wider the farther north you go. This is because with more time, the more uncertain we are about the track. We're pretty certain Ian's going to move south of Jamaica and cross over Cuba, impacting places near Havana as a Category 2 hurricane before entering the Gulf of Mexico. Also on Saturday night into Sunday morning down here near the Cayman Islands, we got to watch out for some hurricane force winds. But look up here closer to the US. This is where things get a little dicey. Once again, the center of the storm could eventually be anywhere inside of this red cone, meaning that the Florida panhandle is just as at risk as the southern tip of Florida. And if this is off even by just like 100 miles, it's going to drastically change the overall impacts to the US. Remember, we're currently forecast to see a Category 3 right before landfall with 140-mile-per-hour wind gusts. If this thing takes just the right or wrong path, that's going to flirt with Category 4 status. Also, the exact place this thing makes landfall makes a huge difference for areas further inland as well. Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, all the way up the mid-Atlantic coast into New England are possibly going to be impacted by this, so we've got to take a look at that as well. And of course, we can't forget about Superstorm Fiona, which has just slammed into the Gulf of St. Lawrence here. We've got a lot of updates on that and how it's going to impact everybody else's weather coming right up. But first, let's get into this hurricane madness. You see, there's something about these I-named storms that really hate the US. 10 of the 66 retired tropical storm names started with I. And remember, we only retire these names when the storm was really bad. Ian may try to join that list of retired names. The trough ridge weather pattern I mentioned in the last video is still the main driver of where Ian's gonna go. But the models are now agreeing on where the trough will be positioned. So now why is there still uncertainty as to where exactly the storm's gonna go? Well, it has to do with short-term movement. Some models keep Ian to the south longer, and some other models pull it to the north faster. The latter gives Ian a better chance of getting caught up in that trough, which is acting like a magnet for hurricanes, and it's going to curve to the north quicker, which would mean a southwestern Florida landfall. But models like the GFS that keep Ian to the south keep Ian from interacting with the trough, allowing Ian to transverse more westward into the Gulf of Mexico. Nevertheless, many model ensembles are now having the storm peak out at a Category 3, which is a major hurricane. This is not surprising, as insanely high ocean heat content, a very favorable upper level pattern, and abundant moisture will be able to strengthen Ian. The National Hurricane Center even explicitly states that rapid intensification is likely. This means that this storm could not only just be a Category 3, but it will flirt with a Category 4 status, maybe even surpassing it. And the hurricane will only be stronger if it takes that track like the GFS shows, keeping it over the ocean longer. Or will it? This is another problem that we've come across with the forecast for this storm. The models that have been tracking Ian more to the west in the Gulf of Mexico depict it growing stronger at first, but then it suddenly weakens like crazy right before landfall. This is because of two reasons. One, a belt of high wind shear will be dropping off the southern coast of the US just as Ian tracks into it. And two, a cold front ahead of this is going to try to bring cool, dry air just south of the Gulf states. So the farther west this goes, the higher the ceiling for the ultimate strength of the storm is, but the more likely it is that it gets impacted by something else that's going to weaken it before it makes landfall. It's very confusing. As of now, it seems like a worst case scenario is actually going to be this storm cutting up and hitting southwestern Florida before it gets torn apart by that wind shear. Or let's say it takes a slightly more westward track and actually grows into this big intense hurricane and parallels the Florida coast rather than just making landfall and crashing and burning. This could actually be worse than a direct landfall because more people will be impacted by the strong winds, the heavy rain, and all of the other negative impacts that you get from a big hurricane like this. We're getting closer to knowing exactly what's going to happen with this storm, but we're not there yet. Long story short, this is going to be a major hurricane. there will be damage. A lot of bad things are going to happen as a result of this. There's no question about it. But you don't have to be scared. You can be prepared just by heeding the forecast and going ahead and getting everything ready now, just in case that worst case scenario plays out. I'll have a ton more details tomorrow. Okay, let's get an update on Superstorm Fiona and everybody else's weather. Post-tropical storm Fiona made landfall in Nova Scotia very early on Saturday morning. Fiona's barometric pressure at landfall was recorded to be 931.6 millibars, which would solidify Fiona as the lowest pressure landfalling storm on record in Canada. And what's even crazier is this is the lowest pressure in a landfalling storm north of Florida ever recorded. Almost 500,000 customers are without power in Nova Scotia. That's over half the people in the entire province. An additional 122,000 customers have no electricity in Prince Edward Island as well. And some of these locations have reported nearly 5 inches of rainfall overnight. Emergency officials in Canada have declared multiple states of emergencies and are asking residents to shelter in place if possible. The sun is just now rising on the worst of the damage and many roads are completely impassable, but it looks like the crisis will not end anytime soon. Like I said in the last video, this is going to be a long weekend for a lot of people in Atlantic Canada. This giant storm impacting the jet stream will ultimately change the entire Earth's weather patterns, just like Typhoon Merbok did a week or so ago. We're going to see a digging trough in the east that will help bring precipitation from the Midwest all the way up into the Northeast. This is also going to be associated with much cooler temperatures for a lot of people in the east. Welcome to fall, y'all. Meanwhile, the summer heat continues to beat down on the southern plains and lower Mississippi Valley. Temperatures will rise into the upper 90s in many locations, making it feel anything but fall-like. But there is some relief ahead as a much anticipated cold front is going to finally approach this area on Sunday night, bringing us some much cooler and drier air as we go into next week, which once again is ultimately due to Fiona's impact on the jet stream. So thank you, Fiona. Other than that, the most important thing that we should all be paying attention to is this major hurricane barreling down on the coast. If it goes a little bit further west, we're going to be talking about widespread rain, maybe some flooding problems, maybe even some severe weather and tornado problems. If it goes a little bit further to the east, then the beaches along the east coast all the way up to New England may have to worry about this once again for some strong winds and other impacts. It's too early to tell exactly what's going to happen right now, but once again, everybody in this area should be paying attention. If you didn't know, during severe weather on this channel, I go live and provide free weather coverage with extensive radar and satellite analysis and a full team of storm chasers who send me video feeds and weather data. With this upcoming hurricane, we're going to do exactly that, but we're going to do more as we partner with Radar Omega's Cyclone Port network to give you literally the most extensive and the best hurricane coverage you could possibly imagine. We've been working hard deploying countless weather instruments and cameras along the coast that can be used to track hurricanes as they come in. Pressure sensors, wind gauges, and all kinds of high-tech gadgets will be sending me data live on the air. On a smaller scale, this was done last year during Hurricane Ida. The amount of footage and forecast data that was collected during that storm is priceless, and it's going to be used in the future to make better forecasts. And this year, we're going even harder, and you get to see it unfold live 100% for free during my broadcast. But here's the coolest part. If you are a Radar Omega subscriber, you get unfiltered access to all of these stations inside the app. That's right, if you have Radar Omega on your phone and you are a subscriber, not only will you have access to the best radar app on the market, but you will be able to open up all these cameras and weather stations anytime you want to check them out. It's quite literally a revolution in hurricane tracking, and whether you're a concerned resident or a distant hurricane tracker, you're gonna love this. Click the link in the description right now to get Radar Omega on iOS or Android today, and consider getting that subscription to gain access to the Cyclone Port network of cameras and weather stations. You won't regret it, I promise. Or you can just subscribe to this channel. It's free, okay? And lots of people have done it and they seem to be happy about it. We just hit 600,000 subscribers the other day. Remember, we're gonna go live during this hurricane the day before, the day of, and probably even the day after, and it's always gonna be free. But I do think that this partnership with Radar Omega is very important, and I know it's helping out a lot of you guys already. So I'm gonna promote their stuff as long as they continue to support me. So support the companies that are supporting me and downloading their app, and we're gonna continue growing this thing together so we can get vital information out to all kinds of people on the internet. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye. Ooh.